Welcome to the Swipe Right Effect podcast, where we will be sharing with you the power to get unstuck by swiping right on yourself. Your host, author C.K. Collins, aka Kelly, gets personal with her guests, sharing stories of themselves getting unstuck with wisdom and guidance. Where do you feel stuck? Are you waiting to get your new life started after a big change? You've come to the right place. So with that said, let's get started.
Hey there, welcome to the Swipe Right Effect. I'm C.K. Collins, aka Kelly, and today we're going to talk to Deb Curtis. Let me tell you a little bit about her and then we'll jump right in. Deb was climbing the corporate ladder in the 90s and found a ceiling. She worked her tail off and worked her way up, but what she's doing now is really what I want to talk to her about. In 2018, she created her own small business to help women build their own businesses or purchase businesses. And she specifically works with women of color, minorities, and I just admire what she's doing. She's in partnership with the Small Business Administration, and she helps these individuals take over and run successful, established small businesses. She's a passionate believer in the power of diversity and is dedicated to changing the way we think about who can own a business. I love this. She has a special way of connecting with people. She shares honest and professional stories that draw in and inspire everyone who listens. She's happily married and proud mom to 3 daughters and 4 grandchildren. And I love that we both have 3 daughters and we can, so proud of them, and it's great. I'm jealous that you have a dog right now. Doggy Maggie May.
I love her.
Welcome, Deb, and thank you for being here today. I'm so excited about talking about mentorship with you.
Thanks, Kelly. Yes, and I love my Maggie May. That's my chocolate lab. And I'm a rookie grandma of 4 babies from my 2 oldest daughters who married their high school sweethearts, and they're expecting 2 more in November. I'm like, wow. Slow the bus down, girls.
Yeah. That is a lot. A lot of baby showers. Yeah. A lot of
gosh.
A lot of spit up on your shoulder.
Right. But it's a blessing. I always prayed for a family when I was younger that would be my own. And let me tell you, God answers prayers. Sometimes not in our timing, but he does answer them.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Well, let's introduce everybody to yourself, kind of your path on the career. Let's go there first, then we can talk about some other things in a minute.
Yeah. My childhood life, at the age of 9, I was abandoned by my mom after my parents were divorced. But she was adopted and didn't have much family of obviously of her own but us. And back in the 70s, she got involved in drugs and alcohol. Yeah. So I won't talk long about that, but I endured childhood abandonment. And then my father was my hero and earned custody of me full time. And my mom, believe it or not, 40 years or longer, missed the majority of my life just because of her own mental illnesses. But I did learn to forgive. March of 2020, long story short, she stayed with us. We rescued her from another home at 76 years of age.
Wow.
And today she's 80 and lives across town. She's 80 years old, lives across town, and we take care of her. Take her to her doctor's appointments. She grocery shops with us. So we forgave her and we have that relationship. So I hope your listeners learn about the power of forgiveness. Okay. Yeah. So then through the years, my dad couldn't afford to put me through college. So my resume did not have a college education on that piece of paper. And as you know, many employers back then, you wouldn't even be granted an interview unless you had that college education. That's the way it was. And I finally found a professional career working for a finance company as a customer service rep when I was, maybe age 20. And I was at that employer for 18 years, because you would recognize this, Kelly. You know, we're Gen Xers, and we were, I believe we were told by our parents to work hard for employers because the employers will take care of you. And
Oh,
so
yeah.
back then, would you agree? I mean,
Oh, yeah.
oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
Never give up and
Yeah,
give
give
your
it your all.
all. Give it
Thank you.
110%.
Oh, and everything.
And I
Yes, you
said that to
nailed
my kids too. And I sing a different tune now.
right. Oh, let me tell you, decades
Yeah.
later, it is a different tune. And you might remember back in the 90s, well, that first employer of mine, the benefits were great. The 401k was like a 6% match. I mean,
Wow.
they gave turkeys for Thanksgiving and had Christmas parties that was paid at the hotel, right? I mean, things were
Yeah.
great. Well, the one thing that was missing for me was I wanted to be promoted, but it was a very male-dominated industry, and they wouldn't promote me in my first career job for two reasons, and they were very public about it, and they could be back then, because the reasons they wouldn't promote me, I didn't have a college education, and I was a woman.
Mm.
So
Wow.
I remained positively persistent, as my daddy taught me, continued to work hard, as he told me, and over time kept telling them, listen, I can do the job just as much as my male peers can. If not, I can do it better, and I can prove it to you. So they promoted me over a probationary period of 6 months and tried me out, so to speak. And I surpassed all their expectations. So they did promote me, but not with the same pay as the men were receiving. And they could get
Wow.
away with that in the 90s. What was important to me, Kelly, was that promotion on my resume, which helped me move up to other employers throughout my 30-year career in corporate. However, as we were talking earlier before showtime here, it was just more of the same, and it really got worse over time. The benefits weren't as good, but the same struggle for a woman in a male-dominated industry, and being a white girl, made me realize, if it's hard for me, I know darn well it's got to be hard for my other woman peers that have a different skin color than me. I was struggling, right? So through all the years, I could go through every stop, but we don't have time for that. I finally recognized that we need to do something different in our country by supporting women and mentoring them and teaching them about other options that are available to them that the men know about, just because they were granted as the head of the household many decades ago, and that carried with them over the decades of till now. So a lot of them have those college educations because, you know, they were the breadwinner back then, and they all were together as a group, and they followed each other, right? Employer to employer. And it was like a community of men, and it still is today. And I'm not here to bash them. I'm here to simply say, it's time to create a community of women and support each other and help us learn together what is available out there in regards to small business ownership of established baby boomer owned businesses, that a woman that's stuck in corporate might be able to transition out and take over these companies. So that's my mentorship. I decided to get off that corporate ladder, Kelly, and pull out my own to now mentor women toward other opportunities. So I'll pause here and kind of let that sink in.
I love that. And I just had this boom when you said ladder. It was like, instead of us always
Yeah.
having to climb that ladder, it's almost like, I think you and I have that same vision. And me with my momentum program, my vision is to take that ladder and pull them up with me, and provide that pathway, provide the guidance, and the hope and the inspiration for that. I think I did have the corporate life, marketing and healthcare, and I had different sales positions, but what I learned the most from was owning a business. Now, working in corporate and running an occupational health center and being responsible for every aspect of that business on somebody else's dime was priceless.
Mhm.
And that's what taught me to run my own business, and I built it and I sold it.
Yeah.
And the reason it was so special to build that business was because like it's your own, and
Yeah.
it's something that you've created. Now, no small business owner does it alone, or if they do, they shouldn't, because there's so many resources out there, and
Yeah.
chambers of commerce and women in business groups, and there's
Yeah.
so many things that lifted me up. And I think just helping people be aware of all of those resources is a huge opportunity. But also the empowerment that comes from that is really
Yeah.
special. So your mission to empower the minority population in the small business world is um, is could be just completely transformative for a young woman or even a woman our age.
Yeah.
um,
Mhm.
so what is it that what was the conduit for change for you, advocating for equality and opportunity in the industry? Was there a specific instance where you saw that and experienced and said, I can make a difference here?
Mm. Wow. Thank you. You just kind of hit the core of my bones asking that question, because the answer maybe isn't a shock to some, but maybe would be a shock to others. Um, I saw enough internally in corporate of disparate treatment and women being dismissed, um, and people of color. I saw enough of it internally. Corporate employer stop to corporate employer stop. Even as recent as my last stop, it happened at my first stop in the 90s, Kelly, and it happened at my last stop, and it happened at stops in between. It was constant, constant. And being in business banking as I love small businesses. So I was in business banking and business lending when I was working for employers. Not only was the disparate treatment internal, I saw it also externally, meaning some frontline workers that take loan applications for small businesses. I call it, they would cherry pick and not
Mm,
call back a certain female voice or a certain person of color based on what they sounded like. I witnessed it, and they would cherry pick. So all of that happened in the 90s, and it'll be shocking to hear this. I even see it happening today still, the cherry picking. So
yeah.
that is the fire that burns in me. And the sad thing is, all of these corporate employers practice and talk about equal credit opportunities and equal employment opportunities,
Hmm.
but they don't practice it, or they're not monitoring it. The leadership isn't monitoring it on the front line,
Mm,
because numbers are more important than people.
yeah.
And that hurts.
Yeah.
And I was a voice of reason while I was in corporate, trying to positively share with leadership that this is happening. And it just put a target on my back for them to push me out.
Yeah. Oh, I'm
And I was
sure.
I was a top performer too, Kelly. It's just the
Yeah.
craziest thing. So that's my passion, is now that I'm out of corporate, I am fully amazed at what you're doing, creating a community to lift up women, because that is what my passion is to
Mm,
help be a voice of reason that's even larger now that I'm outside of corporate. And thank you for allowing me to share my message on your show, because it's helping to get the voices out there to create
right.
the awareness so we practice unity and diversity.
Yeah. Well, thank you for coming, and you're welcome.
Ah,
I mean, my word for this year is gather. And the reason I do this podcast is because I want to learn. I want to learn what people need and how I can help, and share what I do know already, and that's why I wrote my book. Because it really was a pay it forward. People help me learn this. I want to put it all in one place so people can come and read it. And it was absolutely a labor of love and passion and gratitude more than gratitude more than anything. Just so grateful that people took time with me. And so now I want to take that and go forward.
I'd love to hear more about your book, the title. For me and for your listeners, I would love to know. Just give us a quick 5-minute or whatever it takes rundown.
Well, the swipe right effect, when you're in a dating app, you wouldn't know because you're happily married, but in a dating app, you swipe right if you you choose someone, you want to meet them, and you swipe left if you don't. And what I'm saying is swipe right for yourself, choose yourself.
Yeah.
And when you do that, the effect is you get your power back. You take your power back. And if you don't choose yourself, that's a power, a God-given power to choose, right? I mean, you read about it in the Bible, you read about it in the Torah, you read about it in many religions. The fact that as human beings, we have the right to choose, we have the power to choose. If you don't choose yourself and love yourself, your life just stays off kilter. And we're not taught that. We're not taught that as women, that we need to love ourselves. I mean, there's more and more nowadays, but it's just really important. So I'm saying swipe right for yourself, and the effect. So the swipe right effect is you get your power back and you're unstuck. And then you become who you want to be in the world. And then the world benefits from what you have to offer. And if you are single, then you become who you want to date. And that's powerful.
Yeah.
You put out into the world what you want back. I want somebody who travels. I want somebody who's empathetic, somebody who loves their family like I love my family. So it was a labor of love, and it was just a way that I could think to give back. And
awesome.
The coaching practice came from people reading the book saying, I need to talk to you. I was getting messages on Facebook and Instagram, like all these people were reaching out to me in any way they could find me. And it was gratifying, but it was also like, okay, I need to get this organized. If people need to talk, then we need to talk. I'm happy to talk. That's why I'm here. I'm good at
it. I mean, seriously, the swipe right effect, I mean, it can be applicable to personal life and your professional life, or both. And for me, there were many times I was swiping left for the wrong reasons.
Right.
Like, married to my first husband, and I knew walking down the aisle with my dad, I shouldn't have done it, but I did. And I swiped left, and I made a big mistake. He was an alcoholic. There was domestic abuse and such. I wasn't thinking of me. I knew it walking down the aisle. Somebody should have said, girl, swipe right and get the heck out of there.
Yeah.
But sometimes that's where we as women, I didn't have a community then to tell me, hey, something's not right here, Deb.
Right.
That's why you created this community to help each other. And I think of corporate. How many times did I swipe left just to jump to another employer of more of the same? And what's sad is when I talk to other women in this industry, they tell me they're going through exactly what I went through,
right?
Which is more of the same. So there you go, Kelly. We're swiping left all the time, and we should be swiping right. The moment I swiped right and left my last employer was the moment I felt alive again.
Yeah. And it feels that way when you leave a toxic relationship. I mean, you have to learn to quit the bad things. and that where you have to learn when quitting isn't bad. Quitting is the right thing to do. And so,
Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. And so for women who are ready to make that leap, they're either in corporate or, I see a lot of women who are in corporate jobs, go home and stay with their babies, raise their babies for 10 years like I did. And then I started a business. And I was lucky. I had a good business partner, and we kind of, held each other up and worked our way through the scary parts in the beginning. But so what advice would you give to individuals who are looking to make the leap from corporate to entrepreneur, or just basically starting over again? They have maybe some money saved and they have a dream and they want to start a business. What would you tell them?
I would tell them, based on the mistakes that I learned, work on that plan B, maybe a plan C before the grand exit. And the same is applicable to, like, if you're in a bad relationship, work on that plan B.
Yeah.
And be ready. Reach out and talk with other women in community and hear what they have to say. That would be my advice, is work on that plan B. And I didn't work on a plan B, Kelly, until right toward the end, when I just about had enough. And I was kicking myself in my pants, because I think it just goes back to our younger days again as Gen Xers. Don't leave corporate. My daddy said to give it your all for them. And in the 90s, that was okay. But fast forward 30 decades, 3 decades later, 30 years later, it's not the same anymore.
Right. Well, I remember hearing, and I recently heard my daughter's father tell her, she was in a very toxic business situation. And he said, don't quit your job until you have a new one. But it was she let it go on too long, which is, she needs to own that she had, responsibility, and staying too long and not looking, because she was, working 80 hours a week. And, and when he told her that, I was like, yeah, there's that mindset is still there. And it comes from a place of fear instead of a place of hope and determination and drive. I mean, it's that, are you leading with hope or are you leading with fear? And I think that that's something that, just like as children, we're especially female children, we're taught to not necessarily listen to our intuition. Yeah, sometimes, like, if you feel a bad guy behind you, listen to your intuition. But if the bad guy happens to be your boss, don't listen to your intuition. He's your boss. And so I think there's just so much that women have inside of them that they've been told to turn off. And I don't know where you go to find these women to help them, like, how are you meeting the people that you're mentoring? I mean, that's what I'm looking for, people to fill my first founder circle. I'm looking for women to fill the second circle and launch this program. But how do you find the people that you work with? Or how do they find you? Even better.
Yeah. A lot of community and social media authenticity, meaning like I'm on LinkedIn a lot, and I'm very vulnerable. I'm very me. I can be now today. When I was in corporate, I couldn't be. They just owned me. And I had to be so careful with what I said on social media, even though it's my platform and I own it. Somehow they still think they own you. It's just the craziest thing. But that's how I find my people, Kelly. I just joined a new group called the Mom Link, and it's a community where there's women from around the world, and you can join on social media and just kind of test it out. And it's just women like you and me that all have something to offer to help lift other women. And your class that you're offering, the mastermind, oh my word, I was on a LinkedIn audio event that the Mom Link put on yesterday, to hear the voices of women pretty much crying out that I need help. I need to be somewhere. You would have been that voice of reason for them. And they're looking for these communities that many of you coaches offer, first and foremost, to get us mentally on path in the right direction. I think of my last employer and all my previous employers as a woman going through a lot of hurt. I always just quit. Remember, you were just talking about that. I just quit the job. It was easier to just quit and go away. Well, I came across an attorney on LinkedIn who represents women in the workforce that are discriminated against. And he helped me, coach me to not quit until things were filed that needed to be filed, because me quitting meant they won. So my last stop, I didn't quit. And my story is not over yet. And that's, how hard it is to not quit when you're in such an ugly situation. And I'm sure women tell you that all the time. Community, Kelly, and just reaching out to people and hearing their voices. That's how I found you. I mean, Podmatch is a community, right?
Right.
And that's how we found each other.
Yeah.
And good Lord, it just seems like the more communities that I jump in and listen to stories and tell a little bit about mine, that's where I'm finding my people that need me. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
So we were talking a little bit before the program about progress versus perfection.
Oh, yeah.
And I'd love for you to speak to that a little bit, because I think there's a lot of women who feel like they have to be perfect. And there's, the older you get, the more you realize there is no such thing. But especially with, I think I see the young women now, the way they feel like they have to be perfect, how they look on social media. They have to say the perfect catchy thing to be noticed on social media. They want the perfect mate for themselves. They want to be the perfect weight and have the perfect hair. And so there's this different kind of expectation of themselves for perfection. And so I don't know. I'd love for you to speak to that a little bit.
Progress over perfection. I was not perfect, even though I wanted to be perfect for 30 years. I tried to be perfect. Like you said, as we get older, that changes. And I am not perfect with progress, because I'm still trying to find my perfection. And I'm just being honest. I'm far from perfect, but I now am learning, and my call to action for all of your listeners would be, you got to pick progress over perfection. Otherwise, you're just going to spin for 30 years, whether it's a bad relationship or you're not finding your way in corporate. Perfection doesn't win. Progress does. And if I would tell my younger self, I would tell her, choose progress, not perfection. Perfection doesn't get us anywhere. And if you're not getting the progress where you're at, take action and get out, because that's progress.
That is progress. Yeah.
Yes.
Moving yourself away from a bad situation or toxic situation is progress. And it's not easy, but it's incredibly important.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. I remember my first husband, I hid everything about how ugly it was, not only with my father, who rescued me as an abandoned child, but with that employer of 18 years. And here's a good story. I wrote about my past and my first job, and what was really happening in my life was miserable. It was domestic abuse and locked doors and attempts to kill me. And I told the story, of all places, on LinkedIn, just because that's who I am. I mean, I'm learning it's okay to wear a headband and no makeup today and just show up, because this is who I am. I told my story on LinkedIn, Kelly, that job was in the 90s. One of the up the ladder supervisors of that company I work for, he was way up the ladder. He reached out to me on LinkedIn and said, if I would have known what you were going through, I had no idea, because you always were the one making it look like it was perfection and smiling and easy, but it wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
don't do what I did. Stick with the progress. Stick
Yeah.
with the progress.
Yeah. And stay professional, but
Yes. Yeah.
yeah, get the progress. So what is the, let's talk about your company where you are now. You're working with the Small Business Administration, and
Yeah.
you've formed a company. You're an entrepreneur and you formed a company, and you're helping other people
Yes.
buy or build companies. So tell us about that.
You got it. So throughout my career, I was an SBA lender that worked for banks. And as an SBA lender, you take on all business loan credit requests, from a startup to buying a business to buying a building to working capital. And the one credit request that I admired the most, because it seemed to be the one that proved a better return on success, was buying an established money-making small business. Today we're all living longer, and baby boomers are retiring in droves. About 11,000 per day are retiring. And
Wow.
in that number are baby boomer small business owners. They're looking for Gen Xers and millennials to take over their business. So I left corporate and focused solely on teaching individuals with a passion to help women and people of color. How do I acquire and establish money-making business with the SBA? So I help mentor the individuals how to get there. And that's my passion. I want to help move the minority population, including women, into acquiring these businesses and transitioning in as the new CEO. And in many cases, you were a business owner, Kelly. These businesses quite often are what are called absentee owned, where the employees are pretty much running the whole show, and the baby boomer trained them all up, and he's just enjoying his grandchildren as he should. Well, think about it. If you're a Gen Xer or a millennial, and you have an opportunity, fair and equal to all of the men that are small business owners today, to step in and acquire those businesses. So I mentor and help, and that's my business.
Yeah, that's amazing. What's the name of your business?
Well, it's Curtis Business Finance Solutions, LLC, doing business as me.
As Deb Curtis.
You got it. I'm a solopreneur. I'm still a mompreneur. I have a 17-year-old at home. I'm a grandmapreneur with the grandchildren. I love it. And there's nothing better than taking the hurts of my past in corporate and in personal life. And I created solutions for today and the future for my clients. And there's nothing better to me than to help a younger version of who I was get out of what they're in and to the next steps in life, because nobody taught me this stuff 5, 10, 15 years ago, that it was an option. So that's what I'm here for, to teach others.
Yeah, same. Like I want to help the woman going through the divorce that was, potentially gaslighted, cheated on, whatever it was, me of 5 years ago, or 5.5 years ago now. Like I want to help them get through it faster than I did. That's why I did the book, pull all the resources together. This is how I did it. You can do it in a lot less time.
I totally resonate with you. I mean, we're close in age, obviously, Gen Xers, and man, I understand you from top to bottom on that one.
Yeah.
That's our business. We created solutions from our hurts of the past. Isn't that cool? Now we get to help others.
For sure. My friend Kay Harvey, she's a minister, and we've known each other for a long time now. And she said, she actually edited my book. And she said, it's so beautiful watching you take your pain and turn it into something, make something out of that pain. Like, like turn it into a diamond, put pressure on it, write about it, beat it up and turn it into something beautiful. That's something that helps other people. And I was just like, oh, and she, you know, it's just one of those moments where I was doubting myself and am I doing the right thing? And when she said that to me, I was like, wow. And it was just to make something good out of that pain. You know, it's just so powerful. Okay. So I wanted to ask you 2 quick questions and then we're gonna have to wrap up. But I could talk to you all day long. I feel like that every guest, but what is the most, and it's a 2-pronged question. What's the most important thing about mentoring someone? And what's the most important thing about being, or what is the most important thing to know about mentoring? What is the most important thing to know about being a mentee?
Most important thing to know about mentoring is, as you were just mentioning, we get to teach others on how not to make the same mistakes we did in the past. There's no better teacher than mistakes, and or some may call it failure, but I call it opportunity, because now we know what not to do, and that's opportunity to teach others. Right. I don't even like the word failure, right? Yeah. It's opportunity to teach others. But that's the message we need to speak up and teach, because if we don't, we're not helping our world get to a better place. Right. And the final question was, what does it mean to be a mentee?
Or what is the most important thing to know about it? Maybe mindset of a mentee.
It's so, when I see my clients succeed, my heart just beats greater in me that I saved someone not going through what I went through. It's the heartbeat of my business. There's nothing greater than seeing a woman get out of what she's in and put her on the path sooner than I was on. That's the heartbeat of my business, being a mentee.
And I think too, like when you're coming to a mentor for help, and a lot of people are getting mentored for the first time, and it's really important to go into it as, trying to say this the right way, as someone who is willing and able to accept help, because that it's sometimes it's just advice, just the sharing of life experiences. Sometimes it's actually, here's a list of things you're going to do. Being a mentee and being a mentor, it can be a completely different relationship every single time, but being open to the help of the mentor, I think is really important. And anyway,
I think you're spot on, because I'll be real quick. That attorney that helped me, that represents women in the workforce, he was my mentor, and he had to reel me in not to quit. And if it wasn't for him, I would have quit, and I would have been just going through the same motions again. So you being a mentor and doing what you're doing for your community, look what he did for me, and he has his community. He'd be a good introduction for you too, because he has a lot of women that are looking for help, and then he can't help them, all of them, because there's, we all need to just pull together in community like you're offering, and help one another.
Yeah. I think it's just a really important part of life, like that stage in life. And you have the privilege of growing older. Not everybody gets to do that. Some people lose their lives at a young age. And so you have that privilege of growing older, but then you also have the privilege of the wisdom that came from the hills and the valleys and all of the life that you have lived. And you don't want to take that with you. You want to share it and let it help another generation. That's my passion right now. That's my goal anyway, is to help people see how they can do that. And I love what you're doing. I think it's amazing. Do you have a website that we can share?
Oh, sure. It's simple. It's my name, debcurtis.com. And I just want to add, you're really leaving a legacy behind one day for the work that you're doing, Kelly. So thank you.
That's the plan. That's a lot of our curriculum is talking about focusing on legacy. You're doing this for yourself, but while you're going through this process, you're actually building a legacy, which it helps others. And so thank you for saying that. Sometimes I forget to use that word, and I think it's really, really important. Okay. So my last question, which I asked everybody I interviewed for my book and everybody I interview on the podcast, is what feeds your soul, Deb Curtis?
What feeds my soul is the success of others that reach it faster than me.
Yeah.
Because that's what we're meant to help at this age, right? We're meant to help others get there faster.
Yeah. And I hope the more we talk about it, the more people will see, especially women, how much more they have to give than they realized. Because when you're feeling that intuitive call that something's missing, or that I think I'm supposed to be doing something else. I have all this energy. That is your heart, your body, and your soul telling you have more to give and you should go give it. And that's what I believe anyway.
Amen to that. Amen to that.
Well, thank you, Deb Curtis. Thank you for coming on. I really enjoyed this conversation, and I hope everybody listens to it. I hope many people go and look at your website and find opportunity there. And thank you, listeners, for being here today, and we'll see you next Wednesday.
Kelly's book is available on Amazon and through your local bookstores. Look for the Swipe Right Effect, the power to get unstuck. Kelly's interviews with 10 friends from around the world unlock powerful truths to getting your new life started.